I want to see what you guys are consuming, because it's very interesting right now when it comes to the military operations, the joint military operations by Israel and United States in Iran. When I'm like consuming different analysts, different content creators, different news outlets, the way that everything is being interpreted is that it's either going very, very well, or this is the biggest failure in history. Like, it's very interesting. Like, I'm not saying, it's so weird that I keep switching from one channel to another channel, from one analyst to another analyst, and then I like, 1 minute I'm listening to somebody talking about how amazing and successful these military operations are, and how fast we're getting to victory. And then I switch over to someone, I was like, oh my God, this is going really bad. The Islamic Republic is winning. The Americans and Israelis have no idea what they're doing. This, like, and I don't know, it's just so bizarre. Like, I've never seen this much of a gap between the different analysis. And I was wondering if you guys have noticed the same thing. I try to make sure that when I'm consuming information, I'm not in a bubble, that I am, trying to consume people's information from the other side, of people who disagree with me, to see maybe if there's a blind spot, something that I'm not considering. I try to get myself exposed to all different opinions. So I was just wondering if you guys have seen the same thing. And I see Jeffrey put a two in the chat, so he might want to respond to this, which is great, because I think Jeffrey is the best person right now to respond to. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
So the
Thank you.
Islamic Republic, or the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran, is not winning. What you're seeing with regards to divergent takes on what's going on is probably due to a couple of key contributing factors. One, you have vested interest by any number of different actors that are aligned differently, whether it's the United States-led Western alliance that's also in line with the Iranian people versus the autocratic bloc, which is like Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Chinese Communist Party, Mullah regime, sub-state transnational actors, and or internal political dissidents, so radical leftists, members of the Red-Green Alliance that are aligned with them, pushing different narratives. And part and parcel of that is you're seeing people focus on different aspects of the overall operations. So there is no doubt that like the Mullah regime got the living shit kicked out of them. Like there's no doubt about it, right? They have no strategic radar, they have no air defense, they have no air force, they have no navy. Like we've obliterated 3 levels of their leadership. We've hammered like all the IRGC and besieged headquarters. We're like, having weaponized drone storms blowing up the siege, checkpoints in Tehran, and even like individual actors who thought that somehow going full blown transgender blender adventure and putting on hijabs was somehow going to save them from like artificial intelligence and machine learning based targeting. No. So then you got the bad guys saying, well, there's other things going on, like the Mullah regime is still able to launch missiles and some drones, although it's very low. You have the missile strike against Diego Garcia. So where is that coming from? That's not, some of that is very few elements of that. At least I can say with the highest degree of human certainty I possess, there's the highest degree of probability that that residual capability or diminished capability is very little to do with residual capability and very much to do with any number of patron states trying to support the Mullah regime, both to bleed the United States out and or to save their buddy, because like the Chinese Communist Party is overtly dependent upon Mullah regime oil. For instance, the Mullah regime's like the range regarding the Mullah regime's ballistic missile technology or missiles would not be able to reach like Diego Garcia prior to Operation Midnight Hammer. It was the Chinese Communist Party that gave them solid fuel like ballistic missile mixers and all this other stuff to ramp up their ballistic missile capability. So what's some of the things that like we're probably getting ready to focus on to counter that? Well, it's not, there's 140, that's the other thing. Like, so one of the lines of effort or the points of contention regarding the different interpretations of aspects of the operation center around the Strait of Hormuz and the impact of global energy markets, right? I mean, that's a big deal that everybody's focusing on. So, the good guys are like, yep, we've obliterated all the stuff on the Strait of Hormuz. We've taken out like anti-sea missiles. We obliterated all the military on Karg Island, on Qassam, and all these other places. We got A-10 Warhogs strafing and blowing up like parts of the Mosquito fleet that escaped the initial strike. Bad guys are like, well, you're still disrupting it. So what do we do? Well, right now, the this administration, President Trump's administration, is like, there's like about 140 million barrels on ships owned by the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran. And so, like, people are going, you know, we could either desanction or better yet, just seize that shit. And then recognize His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi as the head of the transitionary government, as the official government in exile. Then take that oil and then sell it on the free market disproportionately to our allies that are directly involved in the operations to blunt some of the economic shock so that we can sit there and minimize the amount of impact regarding taking out the Mullah regime, which denies the Mullah regime resources, it minimizes said impact, and put it in escrow for Iranian people when they're gone. So, what's my whole point with regards to that? There's reasons why I underline the reasons why people are kind of probably saying different stuff and you're hearing different stuff, and how that directly underwrites the change in policy, what we're doing to counter that kind of strategic information influence operation. Say like what will happen if you have 14 to 16 billion dollars for the transitionary government to both set up fighting facilities here and train neo Savak, as well as give Iranian people like money that they did not have when it came to the Mullah regime stealing all their wealth, spending it on terrorism and hookers, and letting the real drop down to the worth of like less than monopoly money.
All right, let's. Ali also wanted to respond. Ali.
The analysis that you did and the buildup that you guys had for months, just remember that you did all that and that you felt all those things and you spent so many hours saying and talking about all this, not to just come and have a few random analysts who have no idea say that we're losing with their own agendas.
Hmm. Yeah, but I don't want to dismiss them either, though, right? I do want to take them because that's what the Islamic Republic does. The Islamic Republic, that's why they're so confident, because they only consider the points that makes them feel like they're winning, and they did completely dismiss anything that suggests otherwise. So we have to make sure that we do not, do an echo chamber and just constantly just keep like only look at the signs that make us feel like we're winning, to just consider everything else as well, right?
Yeah, I think they dismiss logic though, and we are
Yep.
pretty sponging up of logic.
Okay, but consider, like, let's consider the points, because I'm not talking about the narratives from the Islamic Republic. I'm talking about military experts who are suggesting that this is not going well, right? And again, I listen to military experts that suggest that this is going beautifully. And I also listen to people, credible people, right? That suggest saying like this is like what this is like a shit show. And what I'm hearing, for example, is that there's an under the Americans underestimated how much the Islamic Republic will be able to continue shooting missiles around the Persian Gulf at anything that wants to go through the Strait of Hormuz, and energy infrastructure around the Persian Gulf, of the Arab countries, and especially water desalination plants, right? And not only that, without leadership, they have like they're saying that even if you keep taking out their leaders, the structure is little bit flatter than assumed. These people will just go and continue, like they prepared for this situation where they have no leaders, and they have the word is atash be ikhtiyar, which is something that Khamenei came up with, like basically suggested that people should be ideologically in line with what needs to happen, and even without as long as they have the launchers, as long as they have the missiles, even if you destroy a lot of their abilities and take out a lot of their commanders, as long as they have some, it doesn't. The missiles don't even have to hit. Okay, their missiles don't even have to hit. Like for commercial ships and tankers, the idea that a missile, again, guys, I'm playing devil's advocate here just because I want us to make sure that we're not in an echo chamber here, right? As long as there's missiles being aimed at ships, they don't even have to hit for the ships to say like, yeah, we're not gonna deal with that. We're just gonna like not gonna deal with that, like because it might hit, right? Even if it's like most of them don't hit. Um, and the rocket launchers, a lot of these rocket launchers are on trucks. And the problem with the rocket launchers from the Islamic Republic's perspective is that when you shoot them, you immediately can see where they are and you could take them out, right? But these rocket launchers on trucks, once they shoot, they move, and they're holding them in forest areas. And because the Strait of Hormuz is so narrow, that means that the launchers that these rocket launchers that are on back of trucks, they could be very far away from the coastline, and basically they could close the Strait of Hormuz, technically close it without actually coming really close to the strait. And to stop that involves actually going deep inside Iran to basically remove all the threat. It's not enough to remove for opening the Strait of Hormuz, for example, completely. It's not enough to destroy most of their launchers. What's required is to destroy all of their launchers. That's what they're saying. And you're saying you're never going to be able to do that. And as long as there's a threat, then there's disruption, and there's going to be pressure on President Trump to just stop, right? And especially because if you want a full elimination of missiles coming at these ships, you need, and that's why some people think that that might be the reason why they're bringing the Marines, because they need to actually go into the land. Jeffrey, this is not my point. You don't need to shake your head. I'm talking about what other people are saying, right? So you don't disagree with me. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And they're saying that they need to move inside, they need to capture some land in the south to be able to go in far deep in to make sure that no launchers could threaten the ships going through. And then also they're saying that there's an underestimation regarding the Islamic Republic's ability to suppress protests. Okay, that's what they're saying. Like because a lot of these people will continue to shoot at people even without their commanders commanding them. Again, I am very skeptical about all of these takes. And so they're saying that there's going to be three types of like pressure on President Trump for them to stop, to come up with an excuse to suggest that they won and quit. There is economic pressure because the global cost associated with this is high for too many countries at the same time. This is not popular in any European country. This is not popular in Japan. This is not popular anywhere. Everyone wants this to stop, right? There's going to be the midterms are coming, and this is not popular in the United States. I mean, they are they're saying that the republic, that's what they're saying, that a lot of politicians who want to support President Trump, they're going to pay a huge price for supporting these military operations in the midterms. So they need to be worried about, and President Trump cannot, is like, it's not like the president of the United States has like full power to do whatever it wants. So without these other politicians who are worried about the midterms, President Trump will be able, like, might lose his political capital to be able to continue these military operations. There's the stock market. The Islamic Republic is now targeting the tech companies, which are responsible, the Magnificent Seventh, as they call it, the inside around the Persian Gulf. They have data centers there, they have offices there, and this them being targeted is a huge cost to them, and that will hit the stock market really badly and that might have a huge impact on President Trump's ability to be able to continue the military operations. So we have the political costs in the midterms, we have the financial costs, and the munitions. They say the munitions are not going to, a lot of people, the interceptors, not the rockets that will are offensive ones, but they're saying they're burning through the interceptors at such a rate that they're now going and using other stockpiles that they have in other places, and this is going to leave the United States vulnerable, especially against for other threats around the world. This is basically going to make them leave them vulnerable. Like as impressive as these launchers, as these interceptors are, they make them at the rate of 12 per year, 12 per year. And sometimes you see like a ballistic missile coming from the Islamic Republic and they're shooting like five of them. Like five of them are going up, and that's like 2% of everything that they have in just one. So that's significant. Just using five of these at the same time for stopping one ballistic missile, that's 2% of all the interceptors you have. That's a big number, right? And it's really hard to rebuild these things. Like I said, like they built 12 of them in a whole year. So that's all of the points that I'm hearing. And then I go to other person, like they, and again, like what you guys mentioned, all the lists of the things that they have taken out. If you go through that, it looks like it's going wonderfully. But these are the points that I hear from people who are saying it's not going as wonderfully. So, Ali, what do you think? Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
twos from Ali, Rick, Drew, Jeffrey, and Bazat, and then I have a list of 5 people.
Okay, so then
I have another
everybody,
two
then
from
if
Snap.
we're doing so many responses, let's try to make sure, because the list is also very long. So let's try to do a short response from everybody so that we could get to the rest of the list. But yes, sorry, Danny, sorry for interrupting you.
No, but I was just saying I also have a two for Snap. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna time everybody.
I'll be
60 seconds
quick.
for responses. Go on.
Okay, so I can list like counter arguments to each of your points because I've also been following all the military analysts for like about 2 months now, so I can address those. But I want to say this overarching umbrella take is that we knew that Iran was not going to be an easy target. We knew that there was going to be a lot of problems. However, all of those really bad problems that we thought were going to happen it has not gotten that bad. And we expected them to fight back way harder than this. So these military analysts who are giving all these doomsday takes would have, had much harder things to say, but they don't. So anyway, the overarching umbrella thing is, regardless of anything that the IRGC were able to do, we still beat them. We still crush them. We're still crushing them. They're able to do this soft power retaliation towards us. And that is why we are sending those 2,500 Marines plus the 2,500 sailors from Asia, plus another 2,500 Marines that we're preparing to send from US bases right now. And then we're also sending in the Airborne Division. I don't know exactly what their objectives are going to be, but it's a pretty good take for them to go and take the southern coast and to systematically dismantle all of those missile launchers so that the strait is freed up. I don't think they're going to go into Harg Island per se. Other than that, we're just going to keep on pounding them. Whether the stock market collapses before the IRGC flee or surrender is a gamble that no one can say for sure, and there's no amount of logic that you could possibly reason with anyone to argue for or against that, because the stock market is just the stock market. And yeah, companies that are around the Middle East, the Magnificent Seven, sure, you can tack them. I'm sure the stock market is probably going to take a dip, but based on that alone, it would never crash. We are much more likely to crash from something like $29 trillion of debt, which we would just hit, and the horrible job numbers that are coming in, than we are to collapse from a dip in that. The oil prices right now are all being affected by emotion. People are buying and selling things like crazy because of what they anticipate. The prices are not going to really be affecting us until about another couple of months, maybe next month, and for the next year. That is when things are going to get bad.
Okay.
Rick, 2 sentences. Is it Rick?
Hey, I just want to say that the media, at least in the United States, a lot of the media is actually political operatives, and they are going to find people to say things that support their political point of view. If they're primarily anti-Trump, they're going to find people to give them things to say to hurt Trump in the midterms. And you have the people on the other side that'll do the same thing. So you can't take everything and every analyst that the media puts on as a honest broker of information.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Drew?
Hey Armin, I wanted to say about some of the military stuff is that one of the worries, if the IRGC can turn this into an Afghanistan type wars, like there are a lot of mountains they can hide in. So one report I saw is in regards to the Strait of Hormuz. What they're doing is they've basically got like missiles inside of the mountains, and so then they just pop out, launch a missile, and then they can go back in. And I don't think that's necessarily like mobile trucks. You can have like shoulder launched missiles and things like that too. So that's why, remember a couple days ago I told you about the bunker busters that we were using that were new, and that's along that coast is where we had been using them. And that's also some of the reports on where they want the Marines to go, especially if they're going to take that island, they're going to and hold it, they're going to need to cover off that Iran coast there, so that you can't constantly be taking fire on the island. And then the thing about bunker busters,
Last point.
not all, okay, I'll wrap it up. Is there's not a whole lot of them. You go through them really quickly, and then real last point is with the Patriot missiles, we're actually producing way more. It's like 600 a year, and it's going up to 2,000. So we have a lot more than you think.
Right. Thank you. Jeffrey?
Here, I'll go through each of the points real quick. So it's true that the Mullah regime had set up its command structure to be decentralized, and the goal was to insulate the impact of any airstrikes on its ability to fire small numbers of missiles and drones, in this case coinciding with its idea of holding the Strait of Hormuz as an asymmetric counter. That's true. That said, we still had to go regardless of that because of a couple of other things. You have to weigh the cost of, not the least of which is the Mullah regime had increased, while both reconstituted and expanded and increased the qualitative nature of their ballistic missile force, thanks to support from Putin's criminalized counterintelligence and the Chinese Communist Party, plus the intel that shows that they're getting ready to marry chem bio warheads to said missiles and launch them en masse at Israel in response to the fact that the Mullah regime was put on the back
60
foot.
seconds.